Welcome everyone to the Hurting Humanity channel. Election fraud is inevitable. Why? Because that's the script that's being played out on a world stage, election fraud. But if civilians realize that there's no such thing as election fraud because the election itself is a fraud, then they'd be able to see the agenda behind the agenda. All the noise that you hear about misinformation, about stolen identity, about illegal immigrants voting and fake votes and whose ballots counting and whose ballots not, is all leading towards the digital ID. And the main ingredient in Agenda 2030 is a digital ID. And people are getting conditioned on the left and the right into accepting a digital ID without realizing that when the left and the right agree, when there's a common goal, when there's a common narrative, that is what's needed, that's when the light bulb should go off. When the two sides agree on something. Because remember, the two-side narrative that plays out around the globe, the Democrats and the Republicans, the liberal and conservative, the red and the blue, when there's a common thought, where there's something that they mutually agree on, that's when you should be suspicious. Because remember, these are two opposing parties that can't even figure out whether or not men could have babies or not. But when they tell you that a digital ID is what's needed to solve the problem, then you should say to yourself, wait a second, a digital ID. Well, what does this mean for my future? Well, it means imprisonment, because everything that's going to be done online, which will be the majority of things as they continue to lock us down more with fake outbreaks and carbon footprint narratives, which again ties into the climate agenda, which is really the reason behind the climate agenda. As we move towards more and more shutdowns, quarantines, lockdowns, etc., everything will be done online. Schooling will be done online. All shopping will be done online. It's imprisonment in your home, which is now your cell via all your smart technology. And then your digital ID will be the thing that monitors your movement, monitors every word you say online, and you will be criminalized and prosecuted to the fullest extent for having thoughts that go against what the mainstream media, aka Big Brother and the government, are feeding you. So, you may have noticed recently, because part of this digital ID agenda that they're doing it in almost every single aspect of our lives, right? We hear all these stories about identity theft. We hear all these stories about immigrants illegally voting and whose votes counting and whose votes not, and we need to get this figured out. And while all those things are happening, you may have noticed that you're seeing more and more two-step authentication being crammed down your throat. Now, it started on Google a little while ago with Gmail. In fact, for those of you that don't have YouTube channels, you may not know, you actually have to have a phone number associated with your channel. You have to have a photograph associated with your channel. And this is what they're doing with all big tech companies now. PayPal, Gmail, Microsoft, PlayStation, Xbox, all of these things that people used to use and just sign on freely, they're being convinced that they need to have two-step authentication because their privacy is at stake. All of a sudden, with the internet being around for 20 years, they're telling you now that, well, somebody could steal your social security. Remember when the internet first started, they told you that all of this stuff was safe. All the online banking was safe. All the things you do on PayPal is safe. Do not worry about anything in regards to safety and protection. Why? Because in the beginning, they wanted to get you hooked to the internet. They wanted to get you online. If the internet started off where you had to give two-step authentication to every single thing that you did, you would probably have pushed back and said, well, I'm not doing that. It's too much of a hassle. I got to take a picture of myself now. I got to give a phone number now. I got to get a text message now. So they gave you the internet. They got you hooked on the internet, and then they got you dependent on the internet, not just for shopping, but for also searching, thinking, interacting with other people. So now they could come back to you and they could say, hey, you want to use the internet still? You got to give us this. You got to give us a thumbprint. You got to give us a retina scan. You got to give us a photograph of yourself. You got to hook up with a phone number. And this step is to annoy you. They're doing this step now to irritate you, not to protect you, to irritate you, because most people are going, why do I have to do this? And every time you have to log in somewhere, you have to verify your identity with this two-step authentication that they're trying to push. That's because the solution for it, remember, problem, reaction, solution, the solution is for them to come in with the digital ID. so that you don't have to worry about it anymore. You don't have to worry about a text message. You don't have to worry about an email to your backup email account. You don't have to worry about any of these PIN numbers or anything along those lines with your digital ID. And the digital ID is going to start with those steps. And eventually the digital ID is going to be embedded in you. But the first step with the digital ID is to get you on board with it. So they're doing all these things like I covered over in the EU. They're not using passport stamps anymore. They're using now digital verification to have a visa for 90 days. They're doing this little by little. And on the other side, while you're seeing all these narratives about stealing elections that aren't even real in the first place, you're seeing the nuisance that they're now creating. They're creating a quiet annoyance because everybody out there sees it. Every time I log into anything online, it's asking me for a phone number. It's asking me for this. And you're all feeling it and seeing it as well. And instead of going and saying to people, what is this about? Most people are just going along with it, rolling their eyes because they have to get into their email. They have to get into their Facebook account. They have to get into their PayPal account. Done by design. Irritating you into compliance and telling you that it's for your safety. So somehow the internet's gone from, with all the advancements in technology, the internet over the last 20 years has gone from very safe when you first came on the internet. Don't worry about hacking or any of these things, to 20 years later, oh, hacking is real and wild and crazy and people are stealing each other's identities so that, of course, you comply into a digital identity. And the other stories that linger out there are stories like this. My identity is stolen. Photos of European influencers used to push pro-Trump propaganda on fake X accounts. This is a narrative they're using because they know they could play into the dumbed-down sheeple out there who think that they're part of a political movement, who think that, they look at it as themselves, right? They're a part of the party. So if you're a Democrat and you see a story like this, oh, it bothers you. But what should really bother you is the underlying words in the article, right? Influencers. Why anybody out there would even be influenced by another human being is beyond me. But they are. They're influenced by other influencers, right? They see some of the pictures here, right? You're influenced by these women. People are influenced by them. Why? Or men, whoever these people are that they roll out. In this specific photo, right? These women. Make America Great Again, right? Some what do they call them? Instagram models. These people, there's a career apparently, being a model and taking pictures of yourself, posting on Instagram as a career in the year 2024. None of these people don't even know how to find fresh water. They wouldn't even know how to create heat if it was cold. They probably don't even realize that they need food to survive, but they need Instagram and the internet to survive. And the notion of influencers being used to push pro-Trump propaganda just shows you the state of affairs that we're in. Because people will see a story like this and they'll say, we need to do something about it. Identity's being stolen. Trump's going to try to steal the election, which isn't even real in the first place, by having all of this high-tech technology where now all of a sudden people are doing deep fakes of you. Instead of saying, why is this technology allowed or legal? This should be an infringement of rights. We're all just accepting the fact that they can do deep fakes, that these people that we don't know who could be the biggest psychopaths in the world, which they are. Because again, if I told you that Jeffrey Dahmer was out there creating deep fakes and Ted Bundys and people that you identify in your mind as psychopaths, you would say, why are we allowing them to create this stuff? But when you say it's Google, when you say it's Microsoft, you go, oh, well, it's just big tech doing this stuff. It should be illegal to have the type of technology in general that allows them to take your face and duplicate it. And the people creating the technology should be arrested. But of course they're not. They're just telling you, you need to accept this, and this is what needs to be done to protect you. Get a digital ID. Then you don't have to worry about somebody stealing your face and stealing your voice and pretending to be you online. And that's why they're doing all this, right? They're doing this stuff. They're creating this psyop around it, making you fearful that somebody could take your face and take your voice, when we should all just be saying, why does this technology exist? Why don't we just get together and burn the technology? Make the technology itself illegal. Where are the benefits? But of course, the government themselves comes out, and what do they tell you? Well, there's benefits to artificial intelligence. There's benefits to deep fakes, right? What's the benefit? Oh, entertainment? Oh, well, modern medicine's one of the benefits. Oh, is it? Is that so, right? Of course, they'll conveniently probably come out sooner or later and tell you that AI came up with the cure for cancer so that you worship the AI. But the reality of the matter is that the cure for cancer is pretty easy to figure out. Don't expose yourselves to the soft metals they're putting in your food and your water, huh? Don't expose yourself to the chemicals that they're dropping from the sky, the soft metals from the sky that are getting exposed into our skin. Those are the ways that we could avoid a disease that just popped up conveniently when they started contaminating our food, our water, and our air supply, right? You didn't hear about people in the 1700s with cancer, did you? That's because you didn't hear about how the government was really being run by these chemical companies and big pharma companies that were poisoning everybody. So back to the story at hand here, right? Because instead of thinking with common sense and saying to ourselves, look at the stuff that we make legal versus illegal. We're making it illegal to speak and to have an opinion. But we're making it legal to have technology where someone could take your face, put it on somebody else's body, and say all sorts of sick, corrupted things. Then they could take you to court, and you could say, well, that's not me, it's a deep fake. And they could just go, no, it's not. It's been proven by who? Oh, well, this tech guy says it's not a deep fake. Oh, but you're going to prison, right? There's no positives that come out of this stuff. So they're using now this they're scaring people with this deep fake type of technology to say, well, people's identities are getting stolen and it's going to affect the election and all this stuff, all this chatter, all this stuff, which ties into my main point of the video, talking about how difficult they're making it for people to just sign into accounts that they've signed into 1 million times over, telling you that, well, we got to make sure it's you and it's not some boogeyman hero. So by sending a text to your phone and make sure it's not. And all it does is irritate you because they're trying to irritate you into compliance, irritate you, scare you, and then use other stories that make you feel like, well, I'm a conservative. I'm sick of them stealing these elections. We better get a digital ID so that they can't steal it anymore, that illegals can't vote anymore, that we could go through with a fair election. And they don't even get to the point, which is why I said election fraud is not real, because the election itself is the fraud. So you're going to continue to feel a clampdown where it's more difficult to access things on the internet, where there's more stories about deepfakes here, influencers there, hackers here, misinformation there, and it all ties in for the left and the right to universally ask for a digital ID, just like I talked about with smart cities. They're going to be smart cities in liberal states. They're going to be what? Freedom cities in conservative states, the things that both parties agree on. Remember, this is a left and right system where the left side of this argument thinks that men could have babies and children should castrate themselves. And the two sides can't agree on that. But when the two parties come together and they say, hey, you know what? We all agree that everybody out there needs to be a part of Operation Warp Speed. Everybody needs to go sign up. And everybody needs to go get this in their bodies for the benefit of everybody. And you know what else everyone else needs to do? Everybody else needs to be on board with the digital ID. Everybody needs to be on board with this technology. Because the most common thing I've been asked over the last 8, 9, 10 years online is, what's the solution? What's the solution, man? Are we going to go and are we going to quote unquote uprise? What can we possibly do? And the simplest answer I can give you is start pushing yourself back from technology. Because the more dependent you are on technology, the more of a slave you're going to become to them. The more independent you could become, which means learning how to grow food. I know it doesn't sound fun, but guess what? It's a lot more fulfilling than most of the things that people are doing in today's world. And it is actually pretty fulfilling. Growing food, having clean water, learning trades, whatever those trades might be. But I'm talking real trades. Those are the things that people need to do. Push back from technology. Don't allow them to continue forward with this push on technology. Limit it. Tell people, hey, we're not going on board. We're not compliant. Because the more you comply with the things they're doing with technology, the more you're pushing them into power faster. Because this is an artificial intelligence governance, which means it runs on technology, which means you have to participate and be on board with the technology. And if you're not on board with the technology, they're going to make it difficult for you to live without it, but you still can. It's going to take work. It's going to take a strong mind and a strong will, but humanity can do it. People can do it. And it starts and ends with removal from technology, because the digital ID, which is what Agenda 2030 really is all about, it's not about censorship, it's about control. The digital ID will control every thought you have, every move you make, every purchase, every single thing you could possibly imagine will be monitored and controlled under a digital ID. And this is a global initiative, which is why you hear the same chatter in other countries about election denial and election fraud and who's stealing the election, instead of the civilians going, I don't think these are real anymore. I don't think any of it's real. These look like actors to me. The Republican guy seems like an actor. The Democrat, there's no way that they're winning, and somehow they're getting put into power. Yeah, this doesn't seem right to me. That should be the mindset that everyone has. Instead of looking at it and going, they're going to steal it again, they're going to steal it again. That's the narrative that they have out there. They're feeding that narrative. How many people I've heard who are just like, Democrats are going to steal the election again. It's not going to work this time. Too big to rig, right? Oh, and if they do steal it, it's too big to rig, then we're going to do something about it. Yeah? What if you realize that the election itself isn't real and that they're baiting you here because they want a digital ID in place so that they can fully have control over your movements, over your actions, over your thoughts, what you can and cannot say, where you go, where you don't go, social distance monitoring, all of it. It'll all be done digitally. All, of course, in the name of all these psyops that they're talking about around you, making you think these things when you that's the problem. The people think that they're organically thinking this stuff. Like, oh man, they're going to steal the election. We're only thinking that because they're telling you that. They're hinting at it without flat out saying, we're going to steal the election. But every single story out there is telling you and making you think without you realizing it that they're going to do this. And they're the ones who are baiting you into it because they're baiting you in to accepting and complying to a digital ID at a time where people should be saying, we need to push back on tech. We need to hold these people accountable at these tech companies, not just for the censorship of speech, but for all the other things that they're doing, like creating deep fakes, like having the ability to just create this technology in general. Not to mention the fact of where does this technology come from, which most of us know, who's given them the knowledge to create these types of things. These people were not born smarter than we are. They do not know more than we do in a sense of, well, they were working hard and they were messing around with chips and this is how they developed this. If you look deep into quantum computing, the videos I've covered over the years, which have all been removed, which are all available, obviously, on the website. If you look deep into those things, you start realizing, wow, this isn't just about some smart tech geeks. This is actually about demonic technology that's being given to them from outside forces, ones that they summon, that present them with the ability to do these things, and then they use their technology to summon these things forward. But most people can't wrap their heads around it. They just look at their phone. They think it magically works through a chip, and then they don't think any further than that, right? How it connects to this, how it connects to that, all the frequencies that they can't see with their own eyes, that they don't think are around them, that are making them depressed, giving them anxiety, and it goes on and on and on. But ladies and gentlemen, we are getting closer and closer and closer to people asking for a digital ID. That's the scariest part of all of it. They're gonna ask on the left and the right, and they're gonna think that this is for their benefit, and they're being conditioned into it. Pay attention, wake up. Share this video, share this information. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.